What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. We're coming at you with our second episode of the Think and Grow Rich Mindset series. And we got a good one today. I said every single week, but this one is a good one. And if you have the desire and the fire under your butt, then this is going to be a really good one for you. So that is actually the first step in the 13 Steps to Riches, which is desire. And so before we dive into desire and really like how this relates to you, not only just accumulate riches, but honestly how you accumulate anything in life or how do you achieve any goal, because obviously the whole goal of this is to obviously, like, this whole book is based on wealth, but we are huge believers that all the principles that apply to wealth also apply to health and vice versa. So like if you want to get healthy first, then you can apply this to wealth. And like if you're already wealthy, you can apply this to your health as well. So before we dive in, we take a deep dive on this step to riches. I have two awesome guests with me today, and I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, tell them who they are, so you can understand why you should be listening to them. So first off, we'll start with Mr. Tim Cruz. Why don't you tell the people out there who you are, my friend?
What's going on, guys? My name is Coach Tim. I'm a coach over at BSB Wealthy Body Coaching. I'm a self-proclaimed meathead / nerd, which means I love learning and I love picking heavy things up and setting it down repeatedly. But really, my passion and what fills my cup is helping people realize, manifest, and ultimately achieve the strongest, best versions of themselves. So whether that be through health and fitness, through belief breakthrough, through self-confidence, any facet of life, I love helping people grow and reach their fullest potential. Like that's what gets me going. That's what drives me in the morning.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to have you on here today, Tim. And Mr. John Bodnar, tell people out there who you are, my friend.
All right. My name is John Bodnar, as you said, and I am also a coach at BSB Wealthy Body Coaching. And my purpose in life, I've been toying around with how to describe it lately, and I've got a really good one now. My purpose in life is to teach people how to take actions that actually serve them, now to believe in both themselves and the actions that they're taking in order to achieve whatever they want. And like that's what gets me going. That's what drives me, and it's something I've experienced for myself, and I'm just so grateful to share that with people around me.
Fire. I think like just a little sentence to that is like we always say like it's always important to lead from the front, and so we're constantly evolving, we're constantly changing. So as we grow, your intro now is growing, it's changing, right? So that's cool. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's dive into step number 1 of the 13 steps to riches inside the Think and Grow Rich series, desire. So there's actually 6 steps inside desire that we're going to talk about today. And the first one is going to be like fix in your mind the exact amount of money you wish to desire. And so this is again straight from the book, but if we were actually to translate this into health, it's like fix in your mind the exact amount of weight you want to desire, or exactly you want to look in the mirror. And I think like the number one step or the number one piece to desire is actually just knowing what the hell you want. So Tim, I'll let you start off with this one. And like, why is that so important for people to actually have this fixation on whether it's health, whether it's wealth, have something to strive for?
Well, before we dive into that, I think it's really cool / paramount that we're talking about money, because money is a really good measuring stick for progress, right? Like for instance, if maybe we're talking about quality of life or happiness, like there's no like numerical value we can assign to it. I mean, we could like assign a 0 to 10 scale, but money's easy. Like you have more money in the bank account, you're doing better financially. Like it's a really easy measuring stick. So before we dive into like the X's and O's here, I think it's important to realize that this is just a transferable skill, and we use money because money is easy to measure, right? So when we talk about fixing our mind on the exact amount of money we wish to desire, we're really talking about setting goals. We're talking about setting a specific target that is measurable and achievable, so that way we can actually figure out whether or not what we're doing is working. So when it comes to money, like let's say you want to make $100,000 a year, you need to make, what is that, $8,333 per month to hit that $100,000 a year. And you can actually even reverse engineer that even further to how much money you need to make per day to hit that $8,333 per month. It makes it very, very mathematical. So I think that's the same way with weight loss. If you want to lose 50 pounds in 5 months, you got 10 pounds a month to lose. And so I think that's the first part is being able to set that goal. But before we get into the goal, which is kind of the whole point of this thing, we have to have the desire to do it in the first place. And desire is a very big word. It's not just simply like, yeah, I'd like to have $100,000. Like, no, you have to want to have $100,000. Like, you have to want to lose that 50 pounds. Some would argue you have to want it more than anything else in your life. Like, it needs to be one of your top priorities for you to take the actions required on a daily basis to make it a reality.
Yeah. And I think what you said right there is very powerful in the aspect of like, okay, you want to lose 50 pounds, you want to make $100,000, but why? Like, why? Like, how would your life be better? You weighing 50 pounds less. How's your life going to be better with you making $100,000 a year? It's like, oh, you start to think about that. It's like, that's actually the thing. Like, and then it might be another layer on top of that too. But like ultimately money or weight loss by themselves are not really that cool, right? They're actually not that fulfilling. And it's like, but what they can bring you, the freedom they can give you, the peace of mind they can give you, that's really where I think, Tim, is what you just basically said right there, is like understanding why you want those things. John, give me your thoughts on why having a target is so important.
If you don't know what you're shooting at, you're probably not going to hit it unless you're absurdly lucky, in which case you won't even know that you hit it. So in order to actually take the proper steps necessary to hit a certain goal, you have to know exactly what that goal is. Like if your goal is I want to make more money this month than I made last month, which reasonable goal, but you have to know how much you made last month in order to beat that. Or if you want to lose 30 pounds, you have to know what that goal weight actually is, because maybe you want to lose 30 pounds, but you actually have 40 to lose. Maybe you only have 20 to lose. Just because you want to lose 30 pounds doesn't mean it's actually the right goal for you. So you need to know what your destination is in order to actually get there.
Yeah. And we always ask people, anytime anybody who joins the program, we always have like, what's your target? What's your goal? Like, oh, I don't really care about weight loss. Like some people might say that, like, it's okay. Where do you feel like, then where do you see yourself feeling the best at? Right. It's always important to have a target, because like we all know, like, again, losing weight will not fulfill you. Like what the amount of weight you lose is really that important. But what is important is having that target. It's having that way, like Tim said, have a way to measure, have a way to know if we're getting better or getting worse. And ultimately, that's what a target, that's what having an exact amount of money in this case, or an exact amount of weight loss, that's why it's important to have that target. Right. And again, like sorry, go for it.
If someone tells you that it's not important, like having a target, that's evidence of a bad coach, because then it's hard to tell them that they're not doing a good job. Right? Like, no, you're getting better. Prove it. How do you prove it?
Yeah.
Like, no, good coaches keep data. Good coaches track things, and then they make sure we adjust things to make sure you're moving towards your target. If you don't have a target, we can do whatever the hell we want. And I can just tell you, no, trust me, you look better.
I'm feeling like I'm doing better. All right. Next up, so now that we know that we have a, that we need a definite goal, we have definite purpose. Now it's like, what do you actually intend to give in return for the money desire, or what do you intend to give for you to lose the 50 pounds, to lose the 30 pounds? And I think this is actually a really important piece, important, what's the word I'm looking for? Topic, variable is just that, like, you have to give in order to get. Like, there is no such thing as something for nothing. I think, especially in the diet industry, and even in the wealth industry, it's like, oh yeah, like, you can make all this money, you don't have to really do anything, just touch a button, right? You have to lose 50 pounds, all you gotta do is like pop a pill. All you gotta do is like not eat carbs. Like, it's really easy. Anytime that you hear that you can get something for nothing, you should run away, because legitimately there is no such thing as something for nothing. Now, I want to piggyback that with, like, there is better ways, there is efficiencies, there is hacks, right? There is better ways than others, but ultimately, how you actually end up getting really good at those things, and how come those hacks become prevalent, is by actually doing some work beforehand, usually in order to make that piece easier, right? And so ultimately, just because you're seeing what's happening right now, it might look really easy, but maybe the work was done back here. Ultimately, there's always work to be done, whether it's on the front end, the back end, there's always something that needs to be given in return. And so, John, I'll start with this one. Like, why do you think this is important for people to understand, like, what they need to give, or what they're willing to give in order for them to actually, get that $100,000 or get that 50 pounds off?
So let's say you have a goal of losing 50 pounds, but you're not willing to stop eating pizza every night.
Yeah.
And then in that case, you're probably not going to hit your goal. Therefore, you can only deduce that it's literally more important for you to have pizza every night than it is for you to lose 50 pounds. Yeah. So it's a way to set your priorities and actually maybe even tweak your goal at the same time. if you say, okay, I want to make $100,000 a year, but I'm only going to get to spend like 2 hours a week with my wife, maybe that's not worth it. Maybe you have to find a different way to do it. Maybe it'll take longer. But until you are actually willing to sacrifice and know what you're willing to sacrifice, it's really in the same area as not knowing what you want. Like, you're not going to get there because you're just going to be frustrated either by giving up too much or by not giving up enough. And either way, you're not going to have the life that you want. So you need to find what that balance is. You can be really aggressive with it. You can be not aggressive at all. As long as you know that it's going to get you there, you get to choose that.
And I think to piggyback that is that, so you'll think about like this being forever, like I need to give up pizza forever. And ultimately it's understanding that there's seasons. There's seasons where you need to go all in. There's seasons where you need to like not be balanced. We talk about this idea of like work-life balance or like balance with food. And like, I'm actually a huge believer that you need to have moments in your life where you're not balanced at all. Like, you need to go all in, you get the momentum going, and then there might be a time when you need to pull back a little bit because now you're getting too far balanced the other way. Like, an example would be like making money. It's like, I'm going all in my business. I want to make all the money because I'm going to work my ass off until I get there. And all of a sudden you work your ass off. All of a sudden then you don't see your wife anymore. All of a sudden your relationship starts to crumble. Maybe you don't see your kids or your dogs anymore. And then you're like, why am I working so hard? Well, it's for my kids and my wife and my puppy that I hardly ever see. It's like, oh, now this is ass backwards. Right. And then, but that's okay. Like, that's actually normal. Then make the change. Like, say, okay, I'm going to pull back because like now I actually have some financial resources that I can play with. I don't need to make payroll. I don't need to like live paycheck to paycheck anymore. I actually have some flexibility and you can like pull it back a little bit. And so people, I think, are so afraid that to do, or maybe they're either so afraid to go all in, or they just don't understand the idea of seasons in your life. And I honestly think that's why people don't go all in, is because like they're scared, like, I gotta do this forever. Like, if I give up pizza, then I gotta give up pizza forever, and that's just not the case. So
actually, I want to tell a story about that. So my dad is a business owner. He's owned it for, I think, 30 years now, if not more. I don't even know how old he is at this point, but a long time. And
your dad has got to be old, man.
Yeah, he's so old, right? Let's see. He just turned 58. So he's owned it for 30 years now. And when you and I started talking, Logan, like actually getting connected, and I'm a business owner as well, and he was telling me stories about like, okay, here are the things that you never saw, because he has a really good life right now. He works not very much, makes a lot of money, has to travel every so often. But there were times when he was starting up that it's like, I got up at 2 a.m. Somebody called me. I was the guy there at 2 a.m. to do the job, to make the money that I had to make. I would leave mom at home with the kids because I had to go make money. I had to go do it. And it's like, it wasn't forever, but it's important to know that, just like you said, Logan, like, there are times in your life, there are seasons where that is necessary. I'm in one of those seasons right now. I'm working a ton and I'm loving it, but I am making other sacrifices along the way. And it's worth it because I know that it's not forever. And I know that things are changing, like even in a few weeks, right? Like, things are changing for that season. But until you're willing to be in those seasons, you're gonna have a heck of a time getting where you want to be, whether it's with weight loss, whether it's with wealth, or even relationships. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices on the other end to have a solid relationship with the people that you care about.
And Tim, I want you to make this correlation into fitness, since you're literally going into a show, which I think is like the ultimate season, right? So if you can kind of make this transition from money into health through kind of what you're going through, which is, a huge show here.
So I think before I say anything, I want to preface this by the level of sacrifice is directly proportionate to the level of your goal that you have set. So if you think about anybody at the very top of their game, whether it's finance, athletics, any field, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, LeBron James, there's no such thing as balance in their life. Like, balance does not exist. Yes, they understand seasons. That's why they're like in the NBA, there's obviously the off season and there's pre-season, and there's different seasons of life. But I guarantee that LeBron James, 99.9% of his bandwidth is consumed with being the best basketball player of all time. Same with Michael Jordan. Anybody that met Michael Jordan or talked about Michael Jordan, there was that, what was it called? The Last Dance, that really good documentary. Like, he was neurotic as hell. Jeff Bezos, the same thing. Like, most people think he's a jerkwad, but it's really, he's obsessed is what he is. So there's no balance at the top. Now, you have to ask yourself before, like, okay, what is my goal? And what is required of me to get to that goal? And if you truly want that goal more than you want the comforts or whatever thing you are giving up, you will sacrifice those things. So from a personal anecdote, around 18 or 19, I started getting into this thing called bodybuilding. I was a high school and collegiate baseball player, football player, wrestler. So I already knew hard work, I knew dedication, all that stuff, but I wasn't like fully like passionate or like consumed with those sports. It was just my athletic, nature. But when I started getting into bodybuilding, I got bit by the proverbial iron bug, meaning I became obsessed. And at that time, I thought I was going to be pro like within like 4 years. And we already told the story a few times, but didn't actually happen that way. But the social circle that I hung out with were not the same way. They still valued very much the parties on the weekends, going out to eat, having pizza, chasing girls, like all that stuff. And I made it up in my mind that stuff wasn't worth that. Like, I didn't get that much fulfillment out of drinking on the weekends and waking up hungover and feeling like crap. And even the fulfillment of like chasing girls and going to the clubs and like, that instant gratification of, oh, this girl likes me. Like, I didn't really get much out of that. So I slowly, actually, I should say slowly, it was very hard cut. Like, I just stopped doing it, like all of a sudden. And wouldn't you know, within a couple years, the vast majority of my friends of that social circle, they no longer were in my life anymore. So I sacrificed a lot of them. Ironically, the one person that I've still remained close to, he's a Green Beret. So he's just as hardcore psycho as I am. And he's all about going all in and hardcore. He just does everything to the max. So that, I think what's important to say, like, you're going to give up things if you want something bad enough. Like, there has to be a trade-off. And the more extreme the goal, the more extreme the trade-off. I wouldn't say that I'm on the level of like LeBron James or Jeff Bezos, like people working 120, 140 hours a week, but you don't see the previous 20 years of what it took to make Amazon what Amazon is today. Like Jeff Bezos was waking up, like sleeping in the office for 2 hours before he worked another 22-hour day. Like, he did that 7 days a week for 20 years before he became a billionaire. Like, we don't see that. We just see the dude now that has the moxie and wears the glasses and looks all suave and literally just bought the most expensive yacht in the entire world. It's a yacht so big that it has its own freaking yacht. Like, that's how big this yacht is. But it wasn't just handed to him. He traded so much for that yacht. And I think it's really important. Like, we talk about weight loss, there is absolutely a trade-off when you want to be healthier. Absolutely. We were just talking about this morning on our team huddle. Where our money goes, where our time goes, those are our two biggest indicators of where our priorities are, right? So in the beginning, we might not have a lot of money, but we have a lot of time. So we're going to invest all of that time. And then once we get that money, now we can start taking back some of that time and start to outsource and delegate. That's essentially what Bezos and Musk and all those high performers financially have done. Same thing with fitness. In the beginning, you might not have a lot of knowledge, but you got a lot of time and you got some money. And if we're spending money on, Jack in the Box and Taco Bell and eating out on the weekends or going through, drive-through drinks, alcohol, like, those are all currency that we now can take back and put towards what our actual priority is. So time and money are our two biggest resources that we have that show where our priorities and where our sacrifices are going. So there's a long-winded answer there.
It's beautiful. And I think to kind of summarize kind of what you guys were saying is that, and actually maybe this will summarize it. Maybe this is something different a little bit, but like, what you're willing to give up is a direct reflection of what you can achieve. And so something as simple as like sacrificing the booze and the partying and, like John said, and like sacrificing the pizza or whatever it may be, is like what you're willing to give up. Like, it doesn't matter that you actually give those things up. Like, again, like by themselves, nothing is bad or good, but it's like, it's your willingness to just say, I'm willing to give this up because this goal is important. It just shows, I think John said this, like it is a priority. And I think that's ultimately what it is. It's just like, are you willing to give it all up in order for you to get to this goal? And if you're not, maybe your goal's not big enough, honestly. Maybe you pick the right goal. And I think that's maybe the subliminal message to this, is that, like, if you're not willing to give up everything for this goal, it doesn't mean you have to, but it's like you must be willing to. Maybe your goal is not big enough. Maybe we got to go back to step one and say, what actually excites you? What actually do you want in your life? And so that's how I would add a little twist to that. So this is something we've actually talked a lot about in like the previous Limitless series. And it's establishing a definite date in which you intend to possess the money you desire, or in this case, to possess the weight you desire or the body you desire. And so we've actually talked about this in both different ways. And so, John, obviously with this one, but why do you think it's important to actually have some sort of definite date, some sort of timeline in order for you to achieve a goal?
A couple of reasons. The obvious one is to give yourself a kick in the butt. Be like, okay, if I want to do this, which I do, and I want to do it by this date, assuming it's a realistic date, then I know how to measure the steps that I need to get there. So like Tim, you mentioned, if you want to lose 50 pounds in 5 months, you got to lose 10 pounds a month. Or if you want to lose 50 pounds in a year, it's whatever, it's, 4.25 pounds a month, something like that. Math is interesting, but it just outlines like what you actually need to accomplish from little bits of time over and over again to actually get where you want to be. And if you don't have a date in mind, or at the very least like a general idea, then you're not exactly going to have a fire under your ass to get going, right? Like, oh, I got all the time in the world, right? I want to make $100,000 a year someday. Well, I'll get there eventually. As long as I'm making more each month, I'll get there eventually. But in order to actually feel fulfillment by saying I accomplished this goal when I said I would, then you actually, again, you get that fire lit under you. It just makes it easier to take the step every single day to get to where you want to be.
Tim, why do you think it's important to actually have a concrete or a definite date to hit a money goal or weight loss goal?
So in a word, urgency. And I know you did this and I'm doing this right now. So Logan, how long ago was it? It was like 8 weeks ago. You had that photo shoot that you and Katie got like peeled for.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I have 9 days before, or 10 days before my competition, for my first competition. It literally lights a fire in your butt. Like, and I've tried this, I've trial tested this in the past. So there was a span about 4 years ago when I wasn't competing. And I had kind of, opened my gym and I'd kind of let myself go, so to speak. Like I still trained, but I wasn't maybe eating as well. And I knew that I didn't have the time resources to invest towards a competition, but I still wanted to like get lean. So I told my wife at the time, like, hey, we're going to do this, set a date. We're just going to have this ethereal date in the future that we're going to get in really good shape for. And it was so freaking hard to actually do the things that I needed to do. I still got in decent shape, but I would not say it was like stellar shape during that time, because when you're met with like a temptation or fatigue, or let's say like a conflict of interest, it's so easy to say yes to the things that maybe occupy more importance than they would otherwise would if you knew that you had this like hard date in the sand that you needed to make it happen by. So I think having that date is important because of urgency. But then to button up to that, I think pick the right date too, right? Like if your goal is to lose 50 pounds and you're like, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds by my sister's wedding in 4 weeks. That's not necessarily realistic. You can probably make it happen. You absolutely can make it happen, but it might not be the best idea. So before even like setting a date, like you probably should have a realistic expectation going into setting that hard date.
Yeah. And I think there is like a small difference between a money goal and weight loss goal in this situation, because obviously there's like drastic ways to lose weight. And I think ultimately understanding that, it's one piece to lose the weight. It's the second piece to keep it off. And so like to crash diet, which is like using wedding as a great example, a lot of, people, I won't say like women or men, like they will crash diet in order to like look a certain way on wedding day. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're like 20 pounds heavier than they were when they first started this whole thing. And then they end up living the rest of their married life that way, right? Happens all the time.
Wouldn't that be similar to like robbing a bank or like financial fraud of like, oh, I want to be a millionaire in 6 months. There's no like realistic way to do that. So I'm just going to go rob Chase, or I'm going to go, rip off my friends. Like it's a unethical like shortcut that never works out well for you. End up in prison.
Perfect example, perfect analogy, right? It's like you can get rich fast too, right? But is it like, are you doing ethical, and is it sustainable? And would you tell your kids about it, right? Maybe exactly. Those are your 3 things. And
not to mention, did you learn any of the prerequisite skills to maintain that wealth? So like look at the stats of people that win the lottery, like the vast majority of them go bankrupt within the next 2 years because they didn't learn any skills to keep that money. Because that's the other half of the equation. Get the money, keep the money.
Yeah. Same thing in weight loss, right? It's like one thing to lose weight, and then the next way to keep the weight. And that's obviously having principles, mindset, understanding the knowledge, the information, accountability, things like that, or the things that actually help you keep the weight off, not just lose weight. Anybody can crash diet, anyone can not eat, anyone can cheat, anyone can do things, that are unethical to lose weight, speed, pills, drugs, or maybe smoking, but like, is that something that is actually sustainable? So I think that's the only caveat I would put to what you guys talked about, just understanding that that's the small difference. But okay, next piece of desire, and this is something that we are all really big upon, and that's like writing out a clear, concise statement of the amount of money you intend to acquire, the time limit and what you intend to give in return for the money, and describe the plan through which you intend to accumulate it. So this basically is combining the first three steps to desire, which is like, okay, you got to know how much you intend, like what is your goal, basically, like that's your goal, when are you going to achieve it, and then like what do you intend to give up for it, and then like what is your action plan to actually get there, right? So it's actually really logical from what we just talked about. And so we obviously are big in talking about goals, writing those things down, putting timelines to those. And so Tim, tell me, like when you see this, why is this so important to actually write this down? Why is it important for you to have a plan?
Because a goal without a plan is just a dream. Like you're not going to actually do it. And I think that this is more like a living and breathing document, not necessarily. That's why we do it every day.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Like you start off with this rough framework of, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to accumulate this much wealth per day. And I'm willing to give up X, Y, and Z to do this. But then you find out that, oh, it takes a lot more sacrifice than I thought it did, and a lot more effort, and it might take more time. So I think it's important to keep revisiting this on a daily basis for two different reasons. Number one is it just keeps it front of mind, right? Like it's constantly on your conscious mind and living within your subconscious. Number two is that it will evolve as you go through this process. And awesome. Like I look back at my notes from because I keep a meticulous journals about all of my diet, my training, and I've done this since I've been like 18. And I can look back and I can learn things. Like I literally pick up trends. I gather data, and I can actually sometimes you forget. Like 4 years ago, oh, I hit this plateau, and I look at my journal like, oh, that's what I did to break that plateau. That time I'm gonna implement it again. But if I didn't keep that data, I didn't have that journal, I wouldn't have known. So I think it's important to keep this information for a few different reasons.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I picked up what you just said is understanding that, like, just because you hit this goal, this first goal, whether it's the money goal or weight loss goal, like understand that you're going to have more goals. Like it actually, there is no end. Like the game is not like, it's not like basketball, which we were referencing earlier. It's not like there's a finite start stop. Like the game of health and wealth, like it never stops. Right. And so the actual point, this is straight from Alex from us, is like the point is not to win the game. Right. The point is to stay inside the game. And the only way you stay inside the game is if you find ways to keep winning. Right. So that means like you set the first goal, make $100,000, lose 50 pounds. What's the next goal? Like what is the next goal? Right. It's like, okay, now $100,000. The reason why I want to make $100,000 is because, well, I want to take care of my family. It's like, okay, now I'm going to like go on a vacation every single, every 4 weeks, whatever it might be. And you're like, okay, now I'm able to go on vacation. Like, what's my next goal? Now I want to make $1 million because now I realize that I can help a lot more people. Right. And then boom. So all of a sudden you set the next goal and you have any of your why behind it. Same thing with weight loss. Right. It's like, I want to lose 50 pounds. Why? Well, because I want to feel good about myself, because I want to be able to make more money at my job. Boom, happens. Right. And you do, it's like, oh, you know what? Actually, I need to like get even better shape because now I want to help other people have the same experience I do. So I'm going to be a coach. Right. Boom. Next level. And so it's always understanding that like what you're doing right now is just setting up for the next goal. And so that's why it's important to actually continue to write these things down. So you actually can, because the only reason that people end up falling backwards, whether it's health or wealth, is because they stop achieving. They stop looking for the next goal. And then when we're not looking for the next goal, we're not doing anything. We're aimlessly going through life. We end up getting really sad, really depressed because we have no direction. And like the worst thing you can have is no direction in life. And that's where depression comes from. That's where anxiety comes from. It comes from the fear of unknown. And honestly, it's just too much time in your freaking hands. Grant Cardone is one of my favorite people talk about this. He's like, white space on the calendar is the devil, right? The moment you start thinking about, like, you have time to think, the moment you have time to sit around and do nothing, twiddle your thumbs is the moment you have you start thinking about all your, you either do one of two things, right? Either one, like you think yourself into depression because you're like, oh, like I should be doing this and this, or you distract yourself with things that probably aren't good for you, like booze, like Netflix, like whatever. And I'm not saying Netflix or booze is necessarily bad, but I'm just saying like these are the type of things that get people into these distractions that end up keeping them from actually achieving their goals because they won't actually sit time. It distracts them from what they actually truly want in life because they actually haven't spent the time to say, I'm going to sit down and think what I want in life, right? So anyway, John, thoughts on this one?
I actually want to talk about the point is to stay in the game. There is no winning the game. The game doesn't end.
Yeah.
Just thinking about relationships in that way, actually, I've seen a lot of marriages in my life that have not done well. And a big part of it is like they think that getting married is like, okay, we did it, we're done. Like that's the end. We lived together for 7 years and then we're engaged for another 2 years, then we got married and everything's just gonna be great. Well, instead, like that has to be the beginning of something new, a new goal, right? It's the same thing as like, okay, I lost 50 pounds, now I'm just gonna binge. Like it doesn't make any sense. And so like once you do get to a certain point, if you aren't still writing down your goals, still writing down what you are willing to sacrifice, because you're always going to be sacrificing something, then all of a sudden you're out of the game and you're going to lose what it is that you work so hard for. And so that's really all I got to say about it. But just the way that equates to relationships, I found very interesting.
Weddings shouldn't be at the beginning of the marriage. They should be like 10 years in, 20 years in. Like it doesn't make any sense to me.
I find that a really amazing analogy. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with, so there's this pastor that wrote a book called Real Marriage. And he said that the problem with marriage, and especially with our high divorce rate, is that we're all playing the game for day one, which is the day of the marriage, when really we should be playing the game for the last day, for our funeral.
Yeah.
What should that look like? We should be excited and planning the party for the last day, not the first day.
So,
I like that.
So important. And like, I've never heard that before. And I think that intuitively, like that's something that I truly believed in is like, if I'm going to go into marriage, it's not something that I can do the first time doing because I want to do this forever. And especially coming from divorced parents, I was like, I don't want to go through that situation. I think that what you said right there is really important. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why I got married in my living room is just because like I didn't feel the necessary thing to like have this a celebration on marriage. Like we would have got married at the courthouse if we could have, but that was an option. So we got married in our living room. But anyway, side note on that. Okay. And then, and this is something I think is so important. Again, like all these things are like, duh, Logan, Tim, John, like these, like nothing we're saying today is revolutionary. Nothing we're saying today is probably new. It's probably just same things that you've heard, but maybe today you heard a different way. Maybe you hear a story from Tim or from John or from myself. And like, oh, like maybe something clicked for you, right? But like reading that statement that you made, your goals out loud, right? And then we'll bring some structure to this. So like twice daily, so like basically in the morning and at nighttime. And as you read it, like you see it, you feel it, you believe it. Like you're in possession of the money. You already are a fit person. You're a wealthy body. Like as you're able to do these things, like they're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, but are you doing it? And are you doing it consistently? Like that's the difference between you actually getting to your goal and being successful and you being like, why is this not happening? It's just consistency on doing all these little things every single day. So Tim, you want to piggyback on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's important to think about this, your brain, the way you think, almost in the sense of like your brain is like a computer, right? Like we are writing a program every single day. We are literally updating our software every single day. And really like in the morning, starting off your day, giving yourself purpose for the day, every single day. And then as you go to bed, there are some cool stuff that happens when you read it before you go to bed, because then your unconscious brain works unconsciously while you're sleeping. So that's first and foremost. But a personal anecdote is, so every single morning on our daily huddles, we go through our manifesto, and then we also read why in every interaction counts. And I'm going to be blatantly honest. Every day I'm not excited about reading them. Like before, I'm like, gosh, we say these every flipping day. But after reading them, it's the repetition. It reminds me, like, yes, this is exactly why I show up today. I might not have slept well last night. I might be tired as hell. I might be hungry. But you know what? every interaction counts. And we read a bunch of stats of why everything counts. And I never once regretted reading them every single morning, even if I went into it thinking, I don't want to read this morning. So it's the same thing with your goals, same thing with your mission. I think the worst thing a person can have is be a rudderless ship. So just adrift at the sea. Like, you've never heard of good stories, anything good happening from a ship that didn't have a rudder. Like, they always wreck and drown and die. That's generally what happens. So we're the same way. We need to calibrate our GPS every single morning and then remind ourselves before we go to bed exactly why we're doing what we're doing.
Think about this analogy that I think I've heard before. It's like, Tim, let's say you're going on a trip, okay? You have no idea where you want to go. How are you going to get there? Are you going to take a plane? Are you going to take a boat? Are you going to walk?
I don't even know where the hell I'm going. My trip might be to the end of the street and be like, you know what, I'm not doing it.
Right. And I think that's really it too. Like in your life, you can take trips to the street. You can take trips across town. You can take trips to different states. You can take trips to different countries. Right. And ultimately, like, once you decide where you want to go, let's say you want to go across a street, like, what are your options in order to get across the street?
Like, you either walk is most of the option to get across the street.
Yeah.
You might take your skateboard, your scooter.
Yeah. Now, if you decide you want to go to, let's say, Canada, right? How could you go to Canada? And let's say we're in Montana, just for an example.
Mm-hmm. So generally now we're looking at either plane, flight, or car, like different modes of transportation.
Yeah. Let's say you wanted to go to Africa.
Plane, car, right, and then ship. Now we have a different mode. Yeah.
There you go. And so just always understand, like, where you're going. It gives you different modalities, gives you different ways to get there. And I think that's honestly why people don't like they feel so lost when it comes to their health and fitness, is because they actually don't know where they're going. So they're like, well, should it be keto? Should I go to the gym? Should I have a personal trainer? Well, where the hell are you going? Like, honestly, like, all those things can help. All those things can be that they get you to your destination, but like, what is best for you? Like, how far are you going? How far do you need to go? Like, do you should go down the street? Yeah. Maybe you should get a gym membership. Do you want to go to Africa? You're going a long ways away. Like, maybe you need to take first class. Maybe take a private jet, right? And that's like obviously a joke amongst us, because that's what one of our programs is called. But it's like, if you look at it from that point of view, it's like, if you don't know where the hell you're going, like, of course you're not going to have, like, you're not going to know the path because you don't know where the hell you're going. I think all the way back to the piece of this, to the very first, is that you must have a clear goal, a clear roadmap of where that you want to get to. Right. And this is what this does. Like, once you have that, then you read it out loud every single day, and it helps you just understand where you need to go. Like, it actually gives you the path. It shows you, like, what are your options, and you start to manifest it. Where you need to go with this. John, what are your thoughts on this?
More so the antithesis of it is like, okay, what if you don't? Like, what if you just write it down once, and then you have this goal in the back of your head forever, and like, what happens then? And odds are pretty darn good. If you write down a goal once and you never think it, never say it, all you do is be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. You don't get there. And of course, this whole thing is about how to actually get to your goals. Like, that's the whole point of this. And this is an essential piece for it, because if it's not top of mind, you will subconsciously or even consciously act directly against it. It's not even a matter of saying like, oh, I'm going to, not do all the things I need to do. Eventually you're going to do nothing. Eventually you're going to lose the inspiration, lose the motivation, because you have no path anymore. It's not even on purpose. But if you're not constantly keeping what you want in top of mind, you will not get it, because you have no reason to. Your brain has no reason to make any changes. Like Tim was saying, it has no reason to reprogram, because there's nothing to reprogram. It's going to reprogram you into what feels comfortable, which is doing what you're thinking about, which is absolutely freaking nothing. So it's just really driving home the importance of it. Because if you're not keeping it top of mind, you're not going to get there. It's going to suck, to put it like.
And if we think about our desire, like, to bring it back to the whole point of the slideshows, is we think of our desire as a fire, and every single morning and every single night we're putting logs on that fire. That desire is going to grow hotter and hotter and hotter. But if we don't write our stuff down and we don't bring this to front of mind every single day, what does the flame do? It eventually runs out. So if you think about desire as literally a fire lit inside of you, we got to keep adding logs to that fire. And then the more little evidences that we get of progress, it's like dumping gasoline on top of those logs that are already burning, and just perpetuates itself forward.
And I want to finish it out with is the importance of this very last sentence, so it doesn't go unnoticed, is that like as you are reading these goals, you're reading this plan, you're actually believing it, you're seeing it, you're actually manifesting it, right? And I think this part is really important to understand, is that when we have a goal, whether it's making a certain amount of money, possession of money, or possession of our body, or at a certain way, the reason why we want that goal is because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way. And here's the secret. And we talked about this in the Limitless episode, but the secret is that you don't have to wait to have that feeling till you are in possession of that money, or you're in possession of that body, or you're in possession of that weight loss. Like, you can have that feeling right now. And in fact, you need to have it right now, because it's like that's actually what fuels your desire. Because all of a sudden you get the experience, you get the taste, you get the feeling, like, oh yeah, that feeling is good. I want more of that. And that's what actually, like you said, Tim, and like that actually, like, the evidence, you start to feel a little bit of that, you start to see it, and then just like sparks that fire. And all of a sudden it becomes so much where this passion is just like, there's absolutely no freaking way I will not accomplish this goal. I know it's gonna happen. And that's where that true conviction comes from, is because you have this belief in yourself, right? And it's funny because, like, by definition, by you setting out to a goal, it means that you haven't achieved it yet. So you actually have not actually truly experienced what it is. And so, like, it's funny because it does and doesn't make sense at the same time, right? But and so in order for you actually to achieve something, you must believe it before you actually see it. And that starts in your mind. It starts with you experiencing and feeling it, and like continue to find little evidence every single day to like add to your story, and to see yourself in possession of the money, in possession of the weight loss. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, that feeling is so good. And you almost like trick yourself into like believing it's true. And all of a sudden it just happens, right? Because you continue to like find evidence, continue to do the things that you know that you need to do, or that you believe you need to do, which ultimately are both the same thing, that gets you closer to that goal. And so I think that is actually one of the most important pieces, is like having faith, which is actually going to be the whole next piece of this. But that desire it's grown through you actually manifesting and believing it, and not waiting until you're on stage. It's you experiencing that every single day, every single morning. And that's actually the true value of having your goals and knowing what you want. You get that feeling today, because honestly, that feeling is freaking amazing. So I know that was kind of a little tangent. Do you guys want to add anything to that, actually?
No, solid.
Oh, that's a good tangent to end on.
Perfect. So that's going to be the end of our first step toward riches, which is desire. Next week we're coming back with faith, I believe. I'm going to have faith that we're going to go with faith next week. That'll be the second step in our journey in this Think and Grow Rich mindset. And man, I'm excited about this. This book truly is amazing, and I'm just excited to dive deep on it again next week. And I we appreciate you, Tim and John, for hopping on here today and giving your insights and your feedback, and telling your stories. It's just so cool. We talk about this a lot. Like, we've learned so much from these, probably more than anybody else who's listening to these do. But if we learn, on a scale of 1 to 10, we learn a 10 and you learn a 9 or an 8, then like everybody wins. So without further ado, appreciate you guys. Appreciate everyone who's listening. Happy Wednesday. We'll be back next week. All right. Bye.
See ya.